The Home Secretary, who is a member of the cabinet, in the British government, close to the Prime Minister, Suella Braverman is her name, a woman of Indian descent, recently put out a statement that she wrote, to all of the, I believe, 48 police bodies in the country, saying to them that them need to expand stop and search, in this country, okay? And in the expansion of stop and search, they should not feel a way about the fact that there is a history of stop and search, and that history is well known to disproportionately affect people of African heritage, as well as other so-called minorities, or global majority peoples, as we prefer to say, in this country. Okay, as it stands right about now, Black people are 4 times more likely to be stopped and searched, and so because of the fact that there's a discriminatory history behind stop and search, obviously, when the Home Secretary says, well, we need to expand the stop and search, it's considered to be a controversial statement, all right? And so there was a discussion, a popular talk show, called Jeremy Vine, and the talk show featured the former head of the Black Police Association, Leroy Logan, and I want to play piece of the discussion, and we can have some conversation around that. All right. So the conversation features Jeremy Vine, I do believe, Leroy Logan, and another sister by the name of Lynn May. And Lynn May, for those who may not be aware, is a rising star within what I refer to as the Black conservative industrial complex. And she's, I believe has a degree in law. I think she also has a property portfolio, but mostly what she's known for is being a talking head, and I don't say that disparagingly, on different shows, social media, as well as mainstream television, as well as independent media in the UK. Mostly, as far as the independent media is concerned, catering for or targeted at the Black community. Okay. And so she's very well known for her conservative viewpoints, and challenging the Black community, or what might be considered dominant opinions, within the Black community. And so you're going to get a sense of that when you watch this video. And I'm going to watch the video and pause at different points, to have some conversation. All right. So hold on there. Let me stop sharing one second, because I want to make sure I share the sound. Because every time I hear the sound. All right. Okay, so we're gonna get into this now. So Leroy Logan, once again, he's a retired police officer, former head of the Black Police Association. So listen to this very carefully.
There's no correlation between stop and search and knife crime. A lot of people say, it is, but it isn't. Even the Home Office Research Unit shows that, and the NPCC, National Police Chief Council, their racial action plan actually states that's the case. So,
all right, so let's bear this in mind. The brethren I say, the former Babylon, yes, this is retired Babylon I speak now. There is no correlation between knife crime and stop and search. What that means, is that when you look upon the issue of knife crime, and then you look upon the issue of stop and search, there is no correlation between rates of knife crime and rates of stop and search. In other words, an increase in stop and search is not known over decades of observation and record keeping to decrease the levels of knife crime. Not a nogosa. There is no correlation by government statistics, by bodies that have observed the police, by the police own fact. There is no correlation between stop and search and knife crime. Okay? All right. So I emphasize that point there. All right. Let's go forward.
This again is political pressure putting on chief constables to with a political outcome. Quite clearly, the Tory government is under a cosh, and it needs something to show they're doing something on knife crime. And then your other speaker was talking about, well, it's mainly black people who are involved in these sort of offences. Well, if you go in West Midlands, you go in Cleveland, you go in Glasgow, many white people, and you don't see the disproportionality on stop and search with them, but you do see it in London.
Right. So this is the next point now, yeah. So London, of all the black people in the UK, half of us live in London, yeah. And the disproportionality, yeah, and the rise in stop and search is very much a London specific issue. Yet London is not the most violent area of the UK. Yeah, I believe as far as cities is concerned, London is probably 4th or 5th on the list. And as far as areas are concerned, it's that there are so many areas in the UK that are more violent, yeah, and have more violent crime than London does, than many areas in London. Yet, yeah, the high intensive focus on stop and search, Leroy Logan is saying, is not replicated in these other areas of the country. Yeah, not a Nagosa. Okay, all right. So that's the next point. Yeah,
because London, where I served for 30 years, has got a default for stop and search that only reveals less than 5% of stop and searches actually come up with weapons.
Less than 5% of stop and searches actually come up with the weapons. Now, bear in mind, the issue at hand right now is stop and search, yeah, based upon the statement of the Home Secretary, okay, the highest order within the country that is directly dealing with, yeah, issues of crime is the Home Secretary. All right. Okay. All right. So less than 5% of stop and searches actually find weapons upon the people them where them a search. Okay. All right.
Or any other prohibited article. So to say there's a correlation between,
excuse me, not just weapons, any other prohibited article that include drugs, yeah, or anything else. We're not for have upon your person. Okay, all right.
Stop and search, knife crime, and saving lives. There is no evidence, and so
that point is very important, yeah, because the talking point that Suella Braverman put out there was that the reason why stop and search is necessary, because it saves lives, and against the argument that stop and search is known to disproportionately affect the black community, her argument was preemptive strike, that black young men disproportionately die at the hands of knife crime, which is, as far as I'm aware, true. So her argument is that in order to save the lives of young black men, we need to increase stop and search. But the reality is there is no evidence to suggest that the increase in stop and search is saving the lives of black men. All right? Okay. Well, I'll make that very, very clear. Okay? All right.
So this is all political will and misguided will at that.
So as far as political will is concerned, yeah, by the way, Suella Braverman is under a lot of heat at the moment, particularly for her immigration policies and trying to get through this policy whereby so-called illegal immigrants to the UK get shipped off to Rwanda, and a whole range of policies that she's trying to institute on the immigration front here. Very, very hostile, policies. All right. And so in my humble estimation, there is part of this statement was designed to create another headline that would detract from a lot of the heat that she's facing in other areas of her political maneuvering. Okay. That's just my personal speculation, and I could be completely wrong. It's a speculation, you know what I'm saying? But what Leroy Logan is saying is that because of the fact that there is no evidence of the fact that stop and search has any impact upon these things, the idea to put this as a policy is simply political maneuvering. It's not geared towards solving the problem in any way, shape, or form. And we're going to come back to that in a second. All right? Okay.
Okay, but the issue I find when speaking to many people.
So the sister now I speak right now is Lynn May, who I referred to earlier. Now listen to what Lynn May has to say.
In the community and youth leaders, what is the alternative? We can all agree that it doesn't have the best of impact, and you said when you look at the Midlands, when you look at even Scotland, there's issues with knife crime, and I'm not disputing that, but it's a huge difference in statistic when we look at black people.
So remember, the issue is stop and search. Yeah, this is what the issue is. Okay, this is what the issue is. Yeah, this is the way she goes.
We're making up 13% of Londoners, but when we're looking at the victims, the murder victims, foreigners, but when we're looking, we're making up huge difference in statistic when we look at black people making up 13% of Londoners, but when we're looking at the victims, the murder victims, 45%. Why is that? When we're looking at the perpetrators with regards to murder from knife crime, it's 61% versus 13% of people that make up that demographic. So why do you think that is? And what can we do as opposed to stop and search?
Well, how long have you got? I know I've only got a couple of minutes, so let me just break it down for you.
All right, so bear this in mind, the issue is stop and search. Now, this is why I stated to you about the black conservative industrial complex, and the regurgitation of talking points, all right, popular talking points, because this is the number one talking point from these white folks, who run a lot of these think tanks and media organizations. What is the alternative? That's the question. The inference being, well, we have to do something, to solve this problem, because solving the problem is what they're really concerned about, right? That's what they're really concerned about, solving the problem, So we must do something, So if not stop and search, what are we going to do? I mean, there's an entire deficit of suggestions and methodologies and policies and programs that we can use, to address these issues. So we must use stop and search. This is the inference behind that line of questioning. Okay, and bear in mind that it is proven over decades that stop and search does not work. So whatever we're going to do, the evidence suggests no increase in stop and search. Right? That's what the evidence is suggesting. Or at least the evidence is suggesting stop and search is not going to solve the problem. Okay? So asking what are we going to do in relation to stop and search, or as though we must now consider stop and search because we don't have another option, which we do, and we're going to get to that in a second, it's totally ridiculous. Why? What is the purpose of that line of reasoning? Then now, the issue about black people. And I've already stated that of the most violent areas in the UK, London is not one of them. Okay. In fact, I'm going to come back to the issue of black people, because this seems to be a very interesting talking point. Let's finish the video, then we come back to that.
The issue of knife crime has been with us for 20 odd years. We had a massive impact on it when...
Key point here. The issue of knife crime has been with us for 20 odd years. All right. Black people have been in this country a significant number since the 1940s and 50s. There has never been a point in the entire history post so-called Windrush of black people in this country whereby we have not been disproportionately stopped and searched by the police. The reason for this has not been, and nobody could argue, that we were disproportionately involved in perpetrating violent crime against each other or anybody else. Yeah? So the idea that increased stop and search exists because of the fact that black people, black young men in particular, are disproportionately committing these crimes is a false one. Because, oh, yeah, got justify that in the 1980s, 70s, and 60s. When similar statistics existed in terms of disproportionate harassment by the police. And that me want for know. Yeah? All right, let's go forward.
And when I was at Hackney, like other superintendents, we had safer neighbourhood teams. We had 1 sergeant, 2 constables, 3 police crime support officers, police community support officers even. And they were the interface on their wards, interfacing with the young people. So even if they were getting stopped and searched by other officers, they identified with those citizens-focused community cops, handpicked to interface, build bridges. And so we were able to have more proactivity, stopping the people who are carrying the knives and the guns and whatever, or even where the next feud is going to be. Because that's the other thing at the moment. Police are just on firefighting patrol. They're just reacting from one incident to another. And you need to have community cops who know what's going on. And it enhances the stop and search because people will give you more intelligence if they're confident and rely on you, and you make them feel safe and secure. So they will tell you where all these things are going to happen next. So being more proactive is a key thing. Plus, also you work with the charity sector. I worked with all the charity sectors to be part of my violent action plan and my community engagement plan. I'm still doing that now through a charity I set up 21 years ago, Voyage Youth in Hackney. So I know the importance of having an integrated plan, knowing what the outcomes are, and ensuring you're going into the cause of the crime. You can be tough on crime and criminals, but you also have to be clear on how you prevent the causes of it through intervention and prevention processes. Okay. That has been decimated by this government over the last 13 years.
Leroy, thank you so much for giving us.
We're going to get into some of those things here, and I'm realizing we're getting on for time, so I'm not going to talk too much right now. Let me get on to something else here. So Lynn May, right, posted a clip of this interview on her Instagram, yeah? And what I'm going to share right now is, you've seen the conversation. There's nothing in the conversation that you just watched that she didn't share, and there's nothing more on what she shared that is not in this conversation that you just watched here. What I'm particularly interested in is the caption, yeah? The caption we should have right here, so, right? So let's take in the caption, yeah? The caption says, "Facts don't care about your feelings. I don't think my question was answered regarding knife crime. If not stop and search, then what?" Which I think he did answer. Whether you agree with the answer or not, he did answer it. One, he talked about reorganizing and reconstituting the police efforts to more community-based policing and building relationships with the community than strictly just law enforcement, draconian militarization, and so on and so forth. The other thing that he said was investing more in the charity sector. Now, full disclosure, I am a freelance youth worker, and Voyage, which he mentioned, is a charity that I have done work on behalf of. Yes, I have worked for that charity. Yeah, in terms of women I say no, working with young people in Hackney. Yeah, so that work was done through Voyage. Okay, so I'm familiar with Voyage. Yes, and the work that Voyage does. He also spoke about that. Yeah. There's more to it, but he's basically saying that a lot of the resources for those things have been decimated, yeah, by cuts, yeah, over the last 13 years, in particular, from the government. Okay, so you might not agree, and some of these things that he said I don't necessarily agree with, right? But he did give an answer. Okay, all right. So, but then she goes on to say, why do black people make up 30% of London? Now, just remember, she threw these statistics out there, but the question that she asked is, yeah, what is the other option? Okay, so you notice that the statistics don't necessarily relate to the actual question. What are we going to do? Okay, the statistics are put out there for the narrative, yeah, but the question stands independently of the statistics. It has no relationship, yeah, to the statistics themselves, because the issue of stop and search is one, as far as the Home Secretary is talking about, is not London alone she talk about, and the whole country, and it's not black people alone she talk about, it's everybody. All right, we can have a conversation about black people, yeah, and that we do around Yassa. But if we're talking about British politics, that is not what we're discussing, at least on the face of it. Yeah, because Suella Braverman did the same thing, focus on the black people there. All right. So why do black people make up 30% of London, but account for 45% of London's knife murder victims, 61% of knife murder perpetrators, and 53% of knife crime perpetrators? Yeah. Now I need to see the sources for these statistics. I really would, because I'm not gonna deny that they're true. I'm also not going to affirm that they're true. I'm just saying that I want to see the sources for those statistics. I've not seen those sources. Yeah. Don't want to hear. But what about Glasgow poverty issues? Yeah. So we're asking now. Remember the question that she asked at the end. What is the cause? Yeah. But in answering the cause, you don't want to hear about poverty. Okay. All right. Cool. And you don't want to hear about Glasgow, because Glasgow is a majority white city whereby we're going to come back to Glasgow in a second, whereby violence and violent crime and knife crime in particular has been historically high. Yes, and far more than London. Okay, so the idea now is that we're gonna particularize this conversation to black people. Okay, and I wouldn't mind, yeah, because I'm a man that particularizes conversation to black people. Except that people tend to be picky and choosy about when and where we can and what conversations we can particularize to black people. Yeah. And because I don't want to talk too much, I'm going to leave that one there. All right. Then she says, then there are those who are race activists from the community. Yeah. All right. Those who are race activists from the community whose mouths are wide open on other topics but struggle with accountability on this topic. Zero desire to push cultural changes, yes, from within. Again, these are dog whistles, yeah, to the conservative industry, yeah, the conservative complex, yeah, that is responsible for propping up individuals from the black community that are going to reinforce talking points. Cultural changes is intended by this group, by the people that, not Lin May now, by the people that construct the argument that Lin May is speaking at the moment, to pathologize the black community, yeah, to deflect from socio-political issues and particularize the issue as being a problem with the black community itself and its inability to take care of its children, to get married, for example, and so on and so forth. Yeah, that is the idea behind when you see cultural, especially in block capitals. Yeah, from within, it's everybody's fault but our own. The system, the government, racism. There are many poor people who do not carry knives as long as their legs, or kill people. All I constantly hear are excuses, hardly any vim as a collective to hold them to account and the culture they represent. Now, the interesting thing about this is that none of this has anything to do with the subject. Yeah, the subject is stop and search. That is the subject. Not to say that the issues are not relevant. Not to say that black people don't need to take responsibility for the crime that exists in our community and addressing it. Not to say that if these statistics are true, that we don't need for all on upon ourselves and say, well, it's war go on with we. Yeah, if this is true, we need to do that. Certainly. But none of this has anything to do with the issue of stop and search. You know why? Because if it is indeed true that we make up 30% of London, but are in fact 45% of those murdered by knives, and 61% of those perpetrating the murders, and 53% of knife crime perpetrators in general. Stop and search now go solve none of them problem there. That is the point. Yeah, how does stop and search address any of them thing there? And how does increased levels of stop and search address the black community taking accountability for itself and with culture and with pathological culture? How? I need this to be explained to me. Yes? What does any of this have to do with the issue of stop and search? Nothing at all. Yeah? But within the media landscape, what happens is people have to engage in performative conversation as though they are interested in solving a problem when they are actually not, as a means for shielding the real agenda, which is creating a political climate to push through certain policies. So in order to justify higher levels of stop and search, even though it is proven to be ineffective, you have to criminalize the black community and create the impression that the only way to address this issue is to increase the policing of the black community. Whether it is effective or not, the policy must be put in place, and the policy can only be put in place with stability if it has the endorsement of a significant amount of the population of the United Kingdom of Great Britain. I'm going to say one more thing, then we're going to open up the line. The reality is, when them are asked the question, Gambia and Lin me know, when these media outlets put these conversations on the table, notice what them discuss and what them not discuss. Because when them are asked, well, what do we do? Them well I know, you know. Yeah, I'm going to show you to them well I know. All right, I'm going to show you to them well I know. Yeah. I'm going to read from an article that was published by The Guardian some time ago, entitled "How Scotland Reduced Knife Crime Deaths Among Young People." Subheading: Treating knife crime as a health issue has led to a dramatic drop in stabbings. Of the 35 deaths of young people in Britain this year, and the year in question is 2017, none were in Scotland. All right, so listen to this now. I'm gonna scroll down. We're not gonna read the whole thing. Yeah. 1 second. Let me see where we are gonna go. All right, so just getting straight to the point. Yeah, the Scottish approach was quite conventional at first. Quote: "The police played a central role in the beginning," explains Christine Goodall, who, along with 2 other surgeons, founded Medics Against Violence in 2008, a campaign group which works with health professionals, law enforcement, social services, and other bodies to thwart violent behavior. They campaigned, this is Goodall speaking again, really hard to get the legislation around knife crime changed so people would be more likely to get a mandatory sentence. There was also, at the outset, a lot of stop and search, unquote. Yeah, listen carefully. The average sentence for carrying a knife in Scotland has tripled from 4 months in 2005, 2006 to an average of 13 months from 2014 to 2015. The issues, says Goodall, were concentrated in certain areas, particularly around Glasgow. Yeah. So when them say we don't want to hear about Glasgow, this is part of the reason why. Tune in. Using intelligence from police operations, the VRU, and I forget what that stands for, but I'll come back to it in a second, identify those people most likely to offend and ask them to voluntarily attend the sheriff's court. They didn't have to come, but they were encouraged to by police, teachers, and social workers, and a lot of them did come, says Goodall. The police had mapped all the gangs, and when people got there, they saw their own pictures up in the court. The session started off with a warning. We know who you are, and if you carry on with this lifestyle, we're going to come down on you really hard. We're going to arrest you, and we will arrest the rest of the gang. You will be going to prison if this carries on. But at that point, the intervention at court took a more creative and holistic approach. We spoke about the injuries we see as a result of the violence. This is doctors talking to them now, yeah, of the violence, and had a mum talk about her losing her son. That really hit home, explains Goodall. Finally, they were offered a way out. There was help with housing, relocation, employment, and training. They were given a number to call if they wanted to take the offer up. Huge numbers of them did so, were put into the program, and are no longer in the gang lifestyle. The decision to treat knife crime as a public health issue rather than simply a police matter. Now, simply a police matter. That doesn't mean that they didn't treat it as a police matter. They're saying that they treated it as a public health issue as well as a police matter. Appears to have underpinned both the direction and support. The fact that the initiative is publicly funded means strategies can be coordinated coherently and organizations can concentrate on the task at hand rather than constantly looking for money to fund the next project. That makes a big difference, says Goodall. The problem, this is Goodall again, for charities, the same charities that Leroy Logan was speaking about, is that they have to compete for short-term funding, she says. So we're able to take a more coordinated approach with a more stable support. And as somebody who works in this sector, I can say that that is definitely true. Funding for youth services can often be very, very difficult to come by and takes up a lot of the energy of the institution. Half the work sometimes, yeah, is just trying to find funding to put on a project. Yeah. All right. And that has been exacerbated in the last decade because of the severe cuts to public spending in the UK. This is the issue that we have. Yeah. I'm gonna read these next two paragraphs and then we're gonna stop here. Because even in this situation, listen to this carefully. Susan McVie, professor of quantitative criminology at the University of Edinburgh, points out that the police, working alone, have a limited capacity to prevent knife crime. Fewer than 2% of stops and searches in Scotland resulted in the recovery of a knife, she says. It's hard to profile kids who carry weapons because a lot of those who carry a weapon aren't the ones who you would expect. They might be kids from middle-class backgrounds who feel frightened, isolated, and threatened in social situations. So even in a situation whereby they're trying other means and strategies, stop and search itself only produce a weapon 2% of the time. So why are we having a conversation about black pathology in relation to, and oh, you know, I just realized that everything that I was reading a minute ago wasn't showing on the screen, was it? Sure. I thought I pressed the share button. I apologize, kings and queens. Just so you know, say me not lie, I don't lie me I tell. Yeah, let's just do this quickly. All right, I'm pressing everything where I'm supposed to press. Yeah. So this is what I literally just read a minute ago. You can find the article at The Guardian, and it's called How Scotland Reduced Knife Crime Deaths Among Young People. Yeah? Okay. That's what I want to know. All right? All right. Now, the final thing I'm going to say is this. I'm going to bring through the brothers who are currently in the background. Yeah, brothers and sisters, the link to join the panel is at the top of the chat. You can join the panel right about now. Yeah, you can either feed into the things that I've mentioned, or you can ask questions, or you can share your opinions, or even raise a whole new topic. It's entirely up to you. I'm going to say this to conclude. As somebody who works in this sector, I can name off the top of my head about 50 black men, and I'm focusing on black men who work with young people, who do work like mentoring and what's the word? Life goal planning and gang intervention. Yes? Men who literally work on creating treaties and resolving beef between man them that live on this estate versus man them on that estate. I could name about 50 off the top of my head right now, not including the black woman them women know, not including all of the other people that the 50 brothers that I can probably name. No. That are doing this work always under-resourced and therefore not having the impact that they could have if they were better resourced, but able to prove and demonstrate results in this area. Me can name about 50 man myself. You're not going to hear that in them conversation. You're not going to hear about them man there and the institutions that they work for. You're not going to hear about the Social Solutions Institute. You're not going to hear about Manhood Academy Global. You're not going to hear about Origin Rites of Passage. You're not going to hear about Rope in North London. You're not going to hear about Amenwar Consultancy. Yeah? Whilst they ask questions like, what else are we going to do? Because what the example of Glasgow shows, and there are no example is perfect, is that other means of addressing these issues work. And if you identify that there are people in the black community who are trying to address these issues, it does two things. One, it makes a lie of this perpetual pathologization of the black community, this argument about why we're not talking about taking responsibility and solving the problem and the rare area. If you're able to identify community organizations that are under-resourced, man are working free often, who are doing this work out of the love of their heart for their people and their community, it makes a lie of that nonsense argument. So we can't bring them man to the forefront. We've had a recent even examples, actually. A couple of them did reach, I think, Good Morning Britain, where our brethren was going around, yeah, collecting knife off for the man them. Yeah? Them now go talk about Respect Fire Bingy and Forever Family. And if you did watch that document, that little something series that they put on a couple years ago, maybe last year, where they had the people in our house, the black people in our house, and they were talking. Lin May was on it, Brother Kende Andrews was on it, and a few others, and then they go and talk to Respect Fire Bingy. So when no one said them know about Respect Fire Bingy, yeah, these are people that have actively gone out into the community to address these issues, yeah. So it makes a lie of that argument. You can't bring them argument to again. That's the first thing it does. The second thing it does is that it puts the establishment and these talking heads and these think tanks in a position whereby they have to put forward and suggest policies that empower those groups who are already solving the problem, who are already can demonstrate results in addressing these issues. It means that instead of government money going towards increasing the policing of black neighborhoods, spend some of that money where you get Babylon to these institutions that the black community has set up for itself. To solve these problems. them no want to engage in that conversation there. Yeah, and that's why you know I go see ShakaRa on none of them platform. Because me go ask them question there. Me want to know what you know about them people here. And if you don't know about them people here, stop talk. And that me I say. And that's it. All right. I've spoken for way longer than I normally do, but I'm sure you can appreciate why. I'm gonna go in order of who joined the panel first. My brother in Trinidad, Setem Imhotep. Greet to my brother.
Greetings, peace, peace, peace.